Hello, Mola, and welcome to Speaking of Everything on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. It was 40 years ago. 40 years ago, Big called. This show is 41 years old, but 40 years ago, he was on my program, Speaking of Everything, this same show. The one and only Mr. Lasana, Sekou. How you doing?
Greetings, oh brother Aurel Gibbs. It's good to be here. Thank
Good
you.
to have you.
Congrats on the radio. I see you now. You're not giving up at all.
Thanks.
It's beautiful.
It was good to have you here because, boy, I saw like a broken record every time I think about that first interview we did.
It's a great story. It's a great story. It's a great story. And it makes our interviews a good conversational, but yeah.
But you know what's amazing, though?
Mm-hmm.
There's a discussion now about legalizing marijuana. At that same time, you couldn't talk about it. And if I bring a Rasta man in the show, the next day I was ridiculed. What are you bringing it for? I remember having you, and they heard your poetry for the first time.
Yes.
And there were those who love it, and those who didn't like it. Look at you today.
You got your first letter of protest. Your first written letter of protest because of that one.
So can you imagine? Now you're 45 years. Congratulations, House in Nehesi.
Yes, thank you.
You started in your dorm at Stony Brook?
At Stony Brook
Wow.
University, yes. Yeah.
Amazing, eh?
It's amazing in how time flies.
You ever thought?
Starting a small press, House of Nehesi Publishers at that time. Not knowing where it will go, but definitely had an idea that it should be. It should happen and it should provide a forum for my own work, but always in mind to publish others.
But it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. I think I told you this once. There was a teacher, a second grade teacher. Her name is Gums, the French side. I went to interview her one time, and she said to me, two of her most outstanding students.
Yes. I remember Mrs. Gums. Yes.
But I can't remember you being in that class.
I don't know. But maybe I was
in a different time, but she was a teacher. So
I remember her being my teacher, but I don't remember all who was in there. Like Regina Labega was in one of my classes, and she tells me stories, and I don't remember, all of that. I was like, well, selective memory, I suppose.
And you disappeared. You went to America, right?
When I was about 12, I think, and then I went away. So I didn't finish my primary school in St. Martin. I finished in New York, and then from there just kept going. But always with an idea to come back home. It was never with an idea to stay, in the U.S. or to stay abroad. St. Martin was always primary on my mind. And yet I enjoyed the time and the studies and the friends made, and some of those friendships are still with me. One of my colleagues that works with us on and off. In fact, we co-published one of her texts a few years ago. She was doing something out of Italy with a museum and so on. And she was a friend in high school. We were the group who would sit at that table and just, talk and whatever. So you never know how you would connect later on, but you keep going. You don't necessarily live at that time, but you just keep going, and then it just evolves.
But you came back in 1980.
84. 1984.
When I started this show.
Indeed, yes, and I remember. Yeah. I remember that. So
and then the House in Nehesi, you remember your first book you published?
The first book was For the Mighty Gods an Offering, which is a collection of my poetry. The first 4 or 5 books were my own titles, but always treated as with the idea that, you may be the founder, but you need people who know more than you, especially with the editing, the design, and so on, to work on this text. So that was always, and it still is. The integrity of our text is very strong, and we try to keep that we bring that to every writer, to every book, and so on. And that came out in 1982. But what was key for that, as a first-time writer, as a young writer, barely known, is to have somebody like Amidi Baraka, who was one of my professors at the time at Stony Brook, right? He wrote the introduction to it. And so, where do you go from there at that level of thing? But those type of things encourage me to just keep going, as opposed to just rest on that,
But I remember when people heard your poetry being recited by you, man, it was different. yeah, the whole different style.
Yeah, it's a different style, and it's elements of style, because there's an influence of the Black American poets coming out of the '60s, and said that's without a doubt. But then I'm bringing in a kind of a Caribbean element, a St. Martin way of speaking, a kind of a rhythmic feature. And always seeking to how could you work with these forms and these features and so on, and yet be original for that environment, for that place. And my place is St. Martin. That has always been my center. And even when I wrote my earlier titles, 4 of my books were published in the U.S. before I came back. And in fact, my first book was in 1978, but that was self-published.
Right.
So it didn't have the same type of rigor that the other books would get. So I always look at that as a kind of a baby, you know. And so you still want to have some kind of originality with the reciting, as opposed to just book publishing, but with the reciting of the poem, the message, the language, the interaction with the public. You know, so I try to bring that to my audiences and to the readers.
You know, House of Nehesi is a powerhouse in the Caribbean now.
People keep saying that.
And you come from a small island where we don't really like reading that much.
Well, you know, reading, it's a funny thing, because I always say, Lamming says it best. George Lamming, the great George Lamming from Barbados, who we published.
In fact, you had him on this show once.
There you go, right? And Lamming says, he said, you know something, we just say this about, our people don't read, blah, blah. He said, but let me tell you something. He said, when a man comes to believe that, I think he used the word text, but it means a book. He said, when a man comes to believe that book or that text is about him, he's going to read it. Because remember, the experiences we've had here for the last hundreds of years, in books, we were nothing. We either didn't exist, or we were the buffoon, we were the clown, we were second to somebody else. We were imitating French, imitating Dutch, imitating Spanish, imitating British, but never ourselves. But ourselves are the greatest stories. That's one of the legacies of in Caribbean literature, which is a young literature, by the way. Because you know, Caribbean people, we're like, Caribbean literature. No, it's a young literature. We don't have to Photoshop that. But look at the places it has reached, both within the region and abroad. You know, and practically from every from every language zone of our region. You know, and not to use these international prizes as any kind of test, but there's not one language zone area where a Caribbean author, male or female, haven't won these type of awards. And the stories they tell are from the Caribbean, their stories, not imitations of other people.
Exactly. But look at Walcott. Mother was from St. Martin.
Indeed. And that kind of and you know, that type of Caribbean moving around of people and parentage and heritage it has always been with us as well, and which is why discrimination against Caribbean people, against our own people, is one of those leftover legacies of the abuse that we suffered in this region on the plantation coming out. And you can say at one level, you can say, well, people always have these little rivalries, fine, but the level to which it is, it's not healthy for our region, because our region historically have shown in every area, in politics, in sports, in culture, that you get these. So you get what is, you know, essentially from that space, but you also get those who come from other places and bring other elements to the culture where Lamming says, where we choose to register. Caribbean people, when you call it illegal or whatever, you say, well, you know what? It's where they choose to register and they become of that nation and of that place. Sometimes it takes a generation or two, but it happens.
We're like a chain.
Indeed.
All linked together, and every link in that chain is still the same.
It's archipelago, and the archipelago is a chain. So perfectly said.
How many books have you published your House of Nehesi?
We are looking between maybe 100, 150 books.
That's a lot.
But I was trying to make some notes before because I realized I should have sent you the book list, right? So, in terms of writers who might have published with us first time or not, because if you count the anthologies, and we've done at least 4 or 5 anthologies, if you count the writers, not just the single author books, about 200 writers, over 200 writers have passed through House of Nehesi publishers, some for the first time, being published for the first time, from throughout our region, not just one island.
The whole Caribbean.
The whole Caribbean. And then remember too, some of the single authors who we've had, who are major authors, the George Lamming, the Kamal Brathwaite, Chiki Vicioso out of the Dominican Republic, Tishani Doshi out of India, the Palestinian author, Nida Kuri, they are from not just our
Right,
region. I mean, Morocco that I
yeah.
mentioned before. Exactly. So we have that aspect too, as a small press, what you call an indie press, independent press. We have that feature as well.
You have this book.
Yeah, this is a new one. This is one, we have like 3 titles already for 2025.
Yeah.
And this is How to Get to the Bridge by Roseanne Rumnett, who is, I think she was on your show.
Many times.
Many times. I was going to say once, right?
No, many times. But she holds the record, actually.
You serious?
She
I should
holds
love
the
to hear
record
that.
for
Yes.
our YouTube views. Almost 11,000.
You know what? She's talking about health.
And close to 100,000 reach.
What is that?
It's amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
She's gonna love to hear that. And that book came out this year. Copies of it is at on your bookstore. I believe she is going to have the to show you. You're correct, because to show you the popularity.
Yeah.
We never tell writers when their book is coming out.
Oh, okay.
But in our meetings with the Sparks Foundation, which are the organization that assisted with her title, we mentioned something about August and we working at it and da. But not anyway. She ran with the word August, and she's had at least gatherings, and at these gatherings, the type of people and the amount of people that turned out is amazing. But she haven't had a formal launch of the book as yet,
Okay.
so it's coming.
Yeah, because I invited her and she said she is still waiting, so we're still waiting.
Exactly. Well, now it's here.
Yeah.
Now it's here.
Here we have another one.
Ixion, the Souffre Suite, which is a 70th anniversary collection of the great Sekou, jazz innovator out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He was very famous in Europe in the 50s and so on, and then came back to the Caribbean.
Who's this one?
This is a new book, Ruby's Writings by Ruby Smith Newberry out of the Virgin Islands.
Oh,
That's also, these last 3 you just pointed to the folks, those are all 2025 books. And this is a collection of Ruby Newberry's writings compiled by her daughter. And we want folks to know that. Sometimes, because Ruby has passed on as well from the Virgin Islands, but the daughter compiled these writings. We have another compilation we're working on, hopefully to come out within this year, maybe near the end of the year, is a compilation of our boy, Louis Duzanson.
Oh, he was amazing.
Amazing. One of a kind, a really class A bureaucrat of the highest order. And it's about elections. So it's almost a follow-up to the Lynchdom book, Know Your Political History. And that's a compilation again. So we want folks to know that you can do that. Sometimes your parents have a great story. Maybe you have to write it, but maybe they have scribblings or they have writings, and you can bring that out. It don't have to be with us, but that also becomes part of the literature of a people.
You know, I had the honor to work with him in government when I was head of the Government Information Service for 10 years. This guy was so respected by the members of the Island Council. The governor at the time, Lieutenant Governor Ralph Richardson, all the commissioners went to him. But they didn't know what to do in terms of a legal
with legal election, everything.
So I can't wait to see that. But this Hurricane Protocol.
This is that's my last poetry. Well, no, it's one of my last poetry, because some other folks had did another book of translation of my work. But this is my last out of House of Nehesi.
In the back, you have a picture.
Hurricane Protocol, and it looks at the last 2 hurricanes we've had and the experiences of people. It's one of the first books where I wrote how people felt and what people were doing. So it's that book. Okay. This one is The Frock and Other Poems by the late Laurel Yaya. So you say Yaya.
People love
Richards.
her.
I love her to death. You know, and that turned out, the launch of that was fantastic too. We held it at the waterfront in Marigot, and that was a great turnout.
You have here this one.
This is the Haiti and literary identity, Trans-Caribbean literary identity, and Emilio Rodriguez, the scholar independent scholar out of Cuba. This is like the 3rd book he's done with us.
Really? Yeah.
And he's another Class A type scholar, and he's been around the world. And so that's the French edition of it, but it's also Spanish, and it looks at how Haiti's relationship to language, which, and I think I've said this on your show before. I look at Haiti's the literature out of Haiti. To me, the Haitian novel to the Caribbean is what the Russian novel is to Europe. You know, it's that the depth and the inside and the hinterland of it is just compact and solid. It's a world, and the Haitians have that in their novels. And so he looks at that writing and what that means and how it's linked to Caribbean literature, and it is part of Caribbean literature. It's at the foundation as well.
And this one?
This one is a four-language piece by a Renaissance scholar, Charles Matz. In fact, I mentioned to you that there's a person who I still work with from high school.
Right.
It's his daughter. So that's how he came to us.
Okay.
And that's translated. It's an epic poem, Caribbean, what they call Atlantic world type epic poem. It begins on the day that Columbus arrives in the archipelago, in the Caribbean. Fantastic. And it's in four languages: Spanish, Italian, French, and English.
You have another one here?
Yeah, that's the first study on my work by Howard A. Fergus, a historian out of Montserrat, a UWI historian. He was also the former governor, acting governor.
So he really was, he went in-depth looking at
very much in-depth. In fact, one of the new books coming out by the scholar from Puerto Rico, Dana Bancuabong, he says, well, it's the first in-depth, he used that word too, I think, it's the first in-depth study of my work. You know, I have to say this, Ora, because if they didn't tell me, stop saying it. But it's good to say it because people are listening and you never know who will pick up on a thing and say, okay, I will do it. All of the folks who've studied my work, including Sarah Florain out of Italy, she's a young Caribbeanist. She did a book on me as well. And they look at the studies and so on, they look at the early works, but they never really, to me, go into the influence that I mentioned before, that the Black American poets had on my writing. And I'm like, what? People say, don't worry about that. It will come. Just, let it
maybe
go.
because it's so evident in a way, maybe.
Maybe. Or maybe because the latter writing is so immersed in the region that they say, well, that's it. But the origins of putting the matter to paper, pen, has a significant influence from there. So I like to say it. Why not?
Let me move the other one there.
It's a biographical piece from our Pioneer series. Out of 7 of them, we did 5 already. These started in the 80s, but this one is recent, in the 2000. It's called Mr. BB. From Alexis Gums, and it's pioneering in house drawing and design. So it also, these type of pioneer series, we did one on York, Chester York, we did one on Gassie, the bike rider, we did one on Lambie out of Sabre, Father Alfie from Station, this is the 5th. You're looking not only at their life, but at their contribution and the areas that they went into at a time when your parents wouldn't tell you to do that. Your parents are going to tell you to be a champion bicycle rider. Be a doctor or nurse, and So we look at that aspect, so we call them, they're booklets, we call them non-traditional pioneers or non-traditional nation builders.
But Gassie was great. He was, his lessons Richardson had him on this show also.
Indeed, very good, beautiful.
Hey, we have another book by
This is an amazing piece of work by Professor Yvonne Weeks and Professor Wendy McConnell out of UK and Yvonne Weeks out of Barbados, Montserrat. And it's a collection of writing. It's a literary, and it's a textbook. It's a textbook that deals with earth science as well as literature. And so it's Caribbean people from around the region telling about their experiences in prose, in fiction, and in poetry of the hurricanes and the earthquakes and the volcano eruption. So it's called disaster management. So it also tells you how to protect yourself, what are the features, and it's a study guide. So it's a textbook. It's a high school textbook basically. So and the first of its kind like that, I must admit, for the region.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we have to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to continue speaking with the man himself, Mr. Lasana Sekou, the publisher, founder of House of Nehesi, right here on Speaking of Everything on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio.
We are vibrant, expressive, warm, and diverse. Together, we conquer, and now we expand into new horizons, giving you more of the best. Introducing our new Bankomatico Plus with wider acceptance, purchase protection, and enhanced security. Whether you're online, traveling, or in paradise, experience more with Windward Island Bank. Bankomatico Plus, more of the best.
You're watching Speaking of Everything, or you're listening to Speaking of Everything on Hot 99.9 FM radio or on YouTube, Facebook, and we're here with the one and only Mr. Lasana Sekou, founder, publisher of House of Nehesi, 45 years, and still going. Doing our best. And
yes.
from one of the smallest islands in the world.
Indeed.
Because if you had to take it from just one half, It's less than 18 square miles.
If you want to divide us and just look at the territories, but you're correct. Either way, it's that. But the Caribbean has defied that historically. There's not one island in our region where you cannot find a major figure or personality, not just for their nation and their island, but also for the region and for the world. There's not one island you can, which is why too, some people, I guess for their own ego and their own ignorance too, and I use that not in a way to put down, but in a way of not knowing, use the big island, small island, but that don't work in the Caribbean. The excellence of our people don't permit that to work. It defies that.
But a lot of people think that, here we go, St. Martin, they don't have nothing, but we have a house in Nehesi.
Oh yes, I heard someone say that once. Yes, I heard somebody say that once.
So that to show you,
that's good. That's good.
We think sometimes so lowly of ourselves, and we put other people on a pedestal, and we put our own down. And it's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate.
We need to be proud that we have the house in Nehesi, 45 years still going, over 150 books published on this little island.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot, yes, and I try to take it in stride, because you always feel that you haven't done enough, and maybe that becomes part of the drive and part of the openness to invite or to embrace or to accept others coming and assisting or contributing, because you always feel there's more to do. Because we mentioned earlier about Duzonson's book. Duzonson has passed on, but his family, Mrs. Duzonson, his son D'Angelo, they have decided, no, this manuscript it has to come out, and so there's so much work out there. There's so many stories of our people that have to be recorded. The day of telling the story under the sandbox tree is gone. We can make a movie about it, about sitting under the sandbox tree. We can do a play about it, but the form and the platforms and the media to record that history and to make it accessible to public. I don't want it up in our archives alone, is often the book or the variations of the book or whatever the book becomes, whether it's e-book or digital and so on, and the other medias like recording and movies and tapes and so on. But definitely the book is so retrievable.
Exactly. You can all go to it. You know that?
There you go.
I'm a computer guy. I don't like to hold books physically in my hand. I like to read on my iPad. But my wife want nothing to do with digital books.
Of course.
I want to feel it. I want to
exactly.
It's
a relationship, and you have that among the younger generation too. So because even the iPad, some have the smaller version, and then they have the book. But then some of them say, no, I want the paper book.
Right. And here we have another one.
It's a children's book, Tea, Cocoa, and Kush Kush. It's like our fourth children's book.
Right.
It's a very popular one. Patricia Turnbull out of the Virgin Islands.
She's a PhD. She was a PhD.
Yes, and based her legacy is also from St. Lucia. So again, you notice some of these writers, just like we talking earlier about the people all connected to different parts of our region. And that's something we celebrate because that becomes part of your strength. It also becomes part of your marketing.
Exactly.
That is important to know as a business person, because that angle, while that might not be my strongest angle, but it's certainly one we're always cognizant of, we're always mindful of, we always advise the writer about how to approach and so forth.
But House of Nehesi is international now. Whether you like it or not.
Because of the type. I know. And the responses we get from people and the type of writers we publish, yes. Yeah.
This book is one of my favorite people.
It's a bestseller.
It is amazing.
In its fourth printing, Junior Lake says, that's not just a cookbook. That is more, Lasana. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, no, it's more. He's not telling me what it's more, but it's more.
When she was alive and I go there, I'll take friends over there.
Yeah.
Oh, she was amazing.
Classic.
And people just love her.
Yes.
Her fish and fungi and everything else.
Yes.
So this is great.
Isn't it great?
Event kitchen.
Yeah. I have a beautiful story about that cookbook. I have an uncle. He says he's visiting. He's from New York area. He's visiting Florida by a friend. So the friend have that book in Florida, right?
Yeah.
And so he picks up the book and he says, this is the book that some of them needs to publish in, not just poetry, right? So the person says, Mr. Arnell, that book is by Lasana.
He didn't know.
He didn't know. So, and he was there from the early years.
Yeah.
In fact, one or two of the book launches, he was the person at the table. So he knows my work, and he knows we've done a variety of things. Right. But a number of our books indeed are literary pieces. It's poetry, it's fiction, and so on. But we do other kinds of books as well.
What stands out in my library? Mm-hmm. National symbols.
Oh, that's
it just stands.
It's have a life of its own.
Yeah.
It really. I didn't expect it. None of us who worked on it expect that to happen with the book. It's a success all around. It's a success that also helps us to publish other books. Because it's a small press, sometimes you go on from week to week, month to month. Sometimes you don't know where the next project is coming and that kind of budget. But National Symbols, when it sells, it pays for other books, especially the in-house books as a traditional publishing category. When it's time to reprint it, which is like now, we don't have the money to do it. We have to wait, we have to raise funds. It's expensive. Yeah. You see, it's hardcover.
It's a big book.
Yeah. And so we have to keep waiting. The school's called, but we don't, And so you have to wait, and you have to try to save and budget, that kind of thing. But it is indeed, because it talks about the history, the culture, the environment of a people, of a nation.
It's very
good. Yes.
And then we have here.
This is Fabian, which surprised everybody. I'm not even going to go into that. It's like, it's erotica. It's erotica poetry.
I had him in the show talking about it.
Yes. I mean, no one expected that of Fabian, But as literature, it's important.
Yeah, it's very important.
It's very important. Yeah. One of the greatest erotic authors, by the way, a lot of people don't realize, Anais Nin, has Caribbean links. Cuba, she had background in Cuba and so on. But it's rare that you get a full novel or poetry collection dealing with erotica, with romance at that level in our region. So Fabian threw it out, and Fabian was saying, that's not the type of love poems you write. Why are you getting on so with my book? Because some of the poems, I had to call him and say, Fabian, are you serious? You want this in the book? He said, yes.
And this one by Dr.
This is also a very strong book. The University of St. Martin, a number of the professors over the years have used it. It's called Language, Culture, and Identity in St. Martin by Rhoda Arundel. It comes out of her studies in language. Her doctoral work is in language and so on. She's a linguist. That's essentially it, and meticulous in her work in the language studies. And so that book deals with the way the St. Martin people speak, the origins of how we the languages that we use, how we speak. Is it a Creole? Is it those type of discussions is going on. It's a very well written, very sound research background book.
You have Laming,
the great George Laming out of Barbados, and this was his second book published with us. It's called Sovereignty of the Imagination, and one of the essays in it is called, what does that say? Language. Turn it back there. What is it? Language and the Politics of Ethnicity. And so it's two major essays by him in the latter years. It's very sharp, and he looks at the region again. He looks at the relationship between the East Indian peoples and the Caribbean peoples of African descent. All of that he looks at, how our music, how we forge. What are we forging as a Caribbean people? What is within? What permeates this thing we call now the Caribbean civilization? And no greater scholar than a political thinker, one of the great political thinkers than George Laming.
And then when you brought him on the show with me years ago, what stood out was his hair.
Yeah. Everybody says that. That's how Beverly remembers it. You said, which one? The old man with the white hair? Yeah, I say, that one.
And it was a lot of hair.
Exactly.
Here we have. I remember this one.
Yes.
Very well.
This is a masterpiece. It is undoubtedly a masterpiece. If you want to know about the sociology of the St. Martin people, this is the only text we have to date. Other books are going to come.
Yeah.
To date, this is the only text we have. It's called Friendly Anger, the Rise of the Labor Movement in St. Martin. So while it looks at the labor movement and the rise of the labor movement, it's permeated with these people that call themselves the St. Martin people and the other peoples who integrate and become part of them, what makes them tick? How does it work? How do they behave in a crisis? How do they settle issues and so on? a masterpiece.
Written by your brother.
By Junior Lake, Joseph Lake Jr.
Yeah.
The introduction was done by the economist out of Trinidad, David Abdullah, who is one of the oil workers trade union officers eventually. And I remember there was an aspect in this book. I might have said it on this show before, but I love it. Just again to show the connections, that we continually make, because it's important. Because each generation can hear pieces of these stories and do different things with them. When I was going through the chapters and so on, and I was saying, wow. So you're going through it as an editor. You're going through it. You're going through it as You're like, yes, I am going through it as Junior to make it stronger, but it's an editor. You're going through it. Yeah. And I was saying, wow, why did the St. Martin labor uprising? Because there was a period of labor uprisings in the region. And the St. Martin was the mid-70s. Why did that happen? I was like, whoa, because it keep ticking in my head because I'm looking at it as somebody who likes history and journalism. Yeah. And so, it
was like the last.
Indeed, very well put. It was one of the last of what you would call a major labor for that period, stretching from the 20s. Right? Curaçao had the 69, Guadeloupe had the mess, 68, I believe. And so throughout the region, Trinidad had all of these places. So one night, I'm there doing editing, and this is my best start to edit, right? And David sends his intro to insert. So now I stopped editing. I'm looking at David insert, and David says, "Well, the St. Martin Labor Union uprising was so late because the St. Martin working class was not in St. Martin at the time when the other parts of the region." I was like, wow. This is massive. He said they were in other parts of the Caribbean. Not were they only in other parts. This part he didn't say, but what it hit me after he said that, not only were they in other parts of the Caribbean, they were in Curaçao, they were in Aruba, some of them were still older, but in Santo Domingo. He says they were taking part in other people's uprising.
And they were leading, by the way.
And of course. Clarence Richardson in Aruba. Willie Hayes was one of the grouping that set off the 30 de May. So all of these people, yes, you had a working class, but they were outside. They were sending money back home. That kind of story. All of our people have done that throughout the region. And I was like, whoa, this is massive. And this is so very important to know, to understand not only your Caribbean relationships, but you as a people.
You're right.
What does that mean? So when Albert came back home to start the labor union in the late 80s, 60s, that was like, whoa. That was when it started to come back. Exactly. Because remember too, one of the last of the major layoffs from the first half of the last century in Aruba, it was affecting a number of people. So a lot of St. Martin's came home, then they dash off to St. Croix. They were still looking for work because we didn't start this type of
rising. And it's amazing, because
it's an amazing story.
My wife's father came from French Quarter.
Imagine.
He was a union leader in the Dominican Republic.
I'm telling you.
But he never came back to St. Martin.
I am telling you, this is the story, and it's a powerful story. Yeah. Again, that's why I said I don't believe in this. We use it out of ignorance or whatever, or just maybe ego. But this so-called big island, small island thing, it don't work in the Caribbean. The Caribbean history defies that kind of ignorance, because there's not one island where we haven't excelled and also excelled in each other's islands. And the labor. So when he said that, I was like, wow. So it's revealing. So from the introduction to the other chapters of that story, Friendly Anger by Junior Lake, you're getting a dose of who are the St. Martin people.
Right. And here you have Brotherhood of the Spirit.
It's a second. That's me. That's my second collection of short stories, which people like.
Much
in literature, they're much younger in the energy. Sometimes I look and say, but where did I get the time to write those stories, man? I wish I could do it now.
When you're young, you don't think about it. Just go.
No, sir. And you can't think about it.
Yeah.
That's why time to stifle kids, especially in high school and so on, who want to get involved with social issues and so on. It's wrong to stifle them, and you're undermining both their future and your own by undermining their ability or their direction into those type of areas.
Yeah.
Because you have the energy. You're fearless.
It's amazing, because seeing where you came from your father, you and your brother, your family stood out in St. Martin as a powerhouse in literature, in news.
And they keep it
Paper,
going.
yeah.
Keep it going, yeah. And that becomes your foundation. You never. I never take none of what I've done for my own work or working with other people to help them with their work. I never take it as, oh, it's me. I did it. Nobody. No. There's a foundation that one came from. There are things I've learned from watching Junior, things I've learned from the stories he told me about my father, things I remember when I used to be in the shop in those days, in my father's shop as a little boy. I remember. Listen, I tell people, I remember I was telling some adults this once, and one was one of these media professors. I say, I saw when they used to put the metal letter chips into blocks to make the sentence. And he looked at me like, how old are you? I saw that in Lake Senior shop.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Roderick was from Barbados. He was our printer, he and Tony and all of them. And I remember them and they used to do it so fast, you know, chuk. And that became the sentence, and then it set up the block, and that became the page. I saw that as a child. So this is key, because it meant that printing and book printing was not a mystery to me.
Yeah. And look at it today, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't a mystery.
It's no longer a press anymore. It's so digital there.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
Listen, you could edit PDF.
Yeah.
You remember you can edit PDF about 5 years ago. At least I couldn't.
Right.
You can edit a PDF right now, you know, and you're good to go.
You know, it's amazing too, because a lot of big media houses still refer to the press.
Yes.
That doesn't exist.
Right.
ABC is one of the few who now use the word media. Even on the reporters out in the battlefield, it's media. It makes sense. The press is no longer there.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And you know what, too? Even I've seen it with a lot of folks. They would send you a press release.
Yeah.
You know, when from House of Nehesi or OES, because we work with them as a division, when we send out a release, we call it news release for the same reason you're saying.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, because it's not just a press anymore. Yeah. It's a multimedia engagement.
Yeah.
The platforms are all over the place.
It's come so easy now to people writing books, AI. You know, it can never be.
It can be, and the errors are amazing. Oh yeah, this is a good one for no, this is good. Okay, you're the first person we're saying this to publicly, right? So we gone into AI because you can use it for grammar and punctuation and so on, but you have to know the content that you input to get. Otherwise, you come up with some crazy things. So this is what we did. So we put in a number of our writers, senior ones and the new ones, the newcomers, right? You should see the Bonanzi story that AI told us about some of our writers. Yeah. It's like crazy, books that I never, listen, I was like, whoa. So fine. What we did, we corrected them.
Yeah.
And, oh, thank you. You know, because a machine you're talking to. Right. But the point is, as a media person too, I don't shun any kind of media.
Right.
We engage with it and we work with it because a number of our writers, it's helpful, and a number of our writers are going to come with a different or a new kind of media, and we can't say no.
But you could identify it too if you know what to look for.
Yes, we can do that. We can find out when that text is false or fake, or when that text is just an AI generation.
Right.
You know, the repetition is one of the features of it. But it was amazing. So a lot of our writers, they like Fabian, they gave Fabian like 5 books that he never did, you know.
Oh boy.
So all of this goes on. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's fun in a sense, but it tells you to be mindful. And it's good to share that with your public, because the parents as well, teachers, they need to know that. And even writers who want to come up, I can use AI, but how is it, what is my input? So again, it causes you and it calls for you to be active, to be a thinker, as opposed to be a passive receiver, or just think you'll do a quick run and then make a quick buck and so on, which some people try. But ultimately, it won't work like that. And remember, the AI is getting better and better as well.
Yeah. When it comes to publishing and course and Amazon, how is it?
Yeah, we've let go of Amazon for over 10 years ago.
Almost everyone is getting rid of it.
Yeah, because it's one of the reasons we let go of it too is because something we feared when we started, that the orders will get bigger. And whenever they got bigger, we realized what it was. We're like a class, a teacher, or some school was teaching it and they make an order. But not only that, the delivery time. Amazon started telling it, not started, it does not. Yeah, it started, but now it does it, and it's understandable. It's their marketing tool. I'm not saying nothing against them for it. They would say, okay, you order Monday. They say we'll get you on Thursday, and in certain parts of the U.S. now, their buses, their trucks are moving all the time. They're almost like they are the AI, you know.
Exactly.
And so they tell you, you order Monday. They say you're getting it Friday, and they are doing their best to get it to you on Friday. If an order like that came through to us, we can't get that book there in time. Even when, you know, our president, Jacqueline Sample, she's US based. Even if Jackie mails it, we can't get it on time. So we were losing money because they would send it back when they can't meet the order, you know. So we let go their hand over 10 years ago. What was fortunate for us, we were dealing with a small press distributor. That was their job, to deal with small presses.
Oh, okay.
And Amazon piggybacked on them. So a lot of times you see our books in these international bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, Australian bookstores, and so on. They were piggybacking on SPD.
Oh, okay.
What happened last year? SPD went out of business.
Wow.
So right now we are we're looking then. I'm not stressing over it to that point, because I know, you know, we are looking for a distributor of that level. With SPD, they were very efficient, they were very fast, but they also were non-profit. Like us.
Yeah.
So they were relying on funds, state funds and federal funds in the US and so on. It was like California based. And they and over 100, maybe 200 small presses, including us, used them. So some of the small presses went out of business as a result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. So that was our in to an international distribution, and regionally as well. We don't have it now. So right now we are at a kind of a low ebb for that. But we are looking, and we will let people know when we find it.
You have any current local people that you're working on to publish?
You know what? Why not say it? We're working on two. I think we can say it because they are in progress, and that they are a soon release stage. Two young St. Martiners. Listen, I just look at some of their works. You know, when I look at Tamara Grunewald and Pfizer and Caleb Dross, I was like, where the hell are they coming from with this information? Because their first book is like light years compared to where my first book. I wasn't there. I'm like, where are they coming from? But we have two more coming like that. You know, one is Sophia Chance. Her mother, by the way, I think you might have had them on one of your shows, is with the book club, the United Women's Book Club.
Oh, no, I have to get them.
You should touch base. Well, you will meet her for sure. She's coming out with a collection of poetry that is off the scale, a different kind of St. Martin kid, you know. And the environmentalist, who's also a writer. A lot of people don't know he's a writer / poet, Tadzio.
Tad.
Both of them. I think we can let people know, because they're that close. They are in progress, and I think we can let people know that they are two of the St. Martin writers that we are working on, whose material is like, we talk about you should be proud. Yeah, you should be proud of them. Yeah.
So we're just about out of time, man. I gotta congratulate you again. 45 years, House of Nehesi, and
thank you.
It's amazing. It's international. We're all proud.
Thank you.
Of the work you're doing and everything else. 20 seconds, all yours, and close.
Well, you know, thank you. Thank to the people of St. Martin. That's our base. St. Martin is our base, our platform, and from there we go wherever. But this is our source, and we always treat our people with the most and the best, and you know, we try to give them the best always.
Yeah.
And thank you, and for the work you've been doing, and you know, like I say, your radio. Congrats on your radio. Congrats on Speaking of Everything. Speaking of Everything is the daddy of the shows, right?
Yeah.
It's like no. What Junior says the what did the military term with the major ship, the
flagship
is the flagship of your operation, and we see that as part of the collegial relationship, and we see media going like that on both sides of our island. We treat it as such, and we want to keep those type of relationships going with our people and with our media people as well.
Thanks a lot again, and congratulations again, Lasana Sekou.
Thank you.
Founder, publisher of House of Nehesi here, and Speaking of Everything, YouTube, Facebook, and Hot 99.9 FM radio. See you next time. Take care. Bye.